Hi, folks. Welcome back. I'm Terry Martin. I'm joined with Jeff Berkowitz of Public Affairs TV in Chicago, and we're going to be talking about some of the major issues that have happened, Jeff, just this afternoon in some cases, but also we're going to be taking a look into the future at the mayor's race coming up in Chicago and how that is developing. Before we begin, we hope you had a great 2022 and a great holidays, and now I think everyone, Jeff, is willing to get back to work, except for the House of Representatives, where as we tape this afternoon, after 6 roll call votes in the U.S. House of Representatives, there is still no one with enough votes to be elected House Speaker. Jeff, give me your short synopsis and we'll take a listen to a little bit of the debate.
Well, Terry, what nobody is talking about in the country, as the Republicans won the majority, lost the Senate, which they shouldn't have, the mess in the United States. The borders, 2 million illegal immigrants coming across our country. That's the annual rate. Going toward 5 million could be coming across our borders, our southern border, illegal immigrants. Inflation, 7 to 8% per year. A likely recession in 2023. China and Russia controlling world events. The mess from Afghanistan and Iran and North Korea, teachers' unions making a mockery of public education across the country, crime skyrocketing in our major cities, American heritage being questioned, Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, all of this, and the GOP couldn't win the U.S. Senate. They barely won the House, and now 5 people, maybe 20 representatives, Republican in the House, are wagging the dog. This is not the country we are proud of.
Well, I don't know about that.
This should not be happening. The Republican Party should not be doing this. It is an embarrassment. That's my thought.
Well, another take is this, that we have seen over and over again a lot of legislative bodies, certainly in the Congress, where they seem to be a bunch of lemmings and only a handful of people are making decisions. So the fact that we have representatives within the Republican Party saying, wait a minute, Kevin McCarthy is another go along with the deep state Republican, and if we're going to change America, we need to change the leadership. Now, let's take a little, but while we tape this, we just had a 6th vote. And on the first vote, I should say, which happened yesterday, January the 3rd, we're taping this on January the 4th. On the first vote, McCarthy had 203 to Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democratic caucus, with 212. And 19 others Republicans voted for other members, including Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan has now endorsed Kevin McCarthy to be the House Speaker. But today, this afternoon, just before we started recording on the 6th vote, McCarthy's vote count fell from 203 now down to 201, and there were 20 votes that were made for black Republican Congressman Byron Donalds, I should say, who is a member in Florida, and he is a very articulate former businessman, worked in banking. No one really expects him to become the House Speaker, but he has kind of gathered some of the votes of those who were opposed to McCarthy. Let's start off first with a bite from the debate. This is Representative Kat Cammack of Florida, as she endorses Kevin McCarthy.
The gentleman, my friend, Kevin McCarthy from California, has done more than anyone in this chamber to secure a Republican majority. Many of the people who are members here today are, quite frankly, here because of his leadership, because they have trusted him, and he has gone out of his way to make sure that every single one of us has had a voice at the table. Furthermore, every single returning Republican in this chamber who cast a vote 2 years ago in the last Congress voted for Kevin McCarthy as our
So as she points out, everyone in the Republican caucus voted for McCarthy to be their leader just 2 years ago. And for now, there's a very small but entrenched opposition. Among those are Matt Gaetz. Yesterday on the debate, he voiced his support for Jim Jordan of Ohio to be the speaker. But if you listen to this bite, you also hear in there, while he doesn't name McCarthy, the reasons why he opposes McCarthy as the House Speaker.
Maybe Jim Jordan would be the right person for Speaker of the House because he wouldn't fight us when we try to get a term limits bill on the floor. Maybe Jim Jordan would be the right person because he wouldn't fight us when we try to put a balanced budget on the floor and vote for it. And maybe Jim Jordan is the right person because he would endorse the plan that was built by the Texas delegation to finally secure our border.
So that's Matt Gaetz of Florida. And again, what he seems to be indicating is that behind the scenes, McCarthy has been blocking a lot of the real conservative issues, or some would say common sense issues, like a balanced budget, like closing the border. So, Jeff, what's your take on what you've heard?
Look, nobody but a relatively small group of conservatives have ever heard of Matt Gaetz, and they never will hear of Matt Gaetz. And the 5 people, including Matt, who are blocking this, are even less well known. Andy Biggs from Arizona, Ralph Norman from South Carolina, Bob Good from Virginia, Matt Rosendale from Montana. Give me a break. These 5 people are controlling the U.S. House of Representatives. These 5 people are supposed to be the 5 people to decide who would be the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. This is not right. This shouldn't be happening. Look, McCarthy is in trouble. He had months to deal with this. The election was November 8. We're now approaching 2 months. I'm sorry, but you only get a certain amount of time. You throw this thing out there. We've had 6 votes, and none of them are getting better, getting worse. Look, it's time to say, here, Steve Scalise is a really reasonable and good substitute. He's much more acceptable to these 5 or 20, however you want to put it. Let's just go with it. You know,
Yeah, you
Kevin
took the name I was going to say. So where we are, because it's such a divided Congress, almost equally divided, the Republicans with just a 4-seat majority, and you have Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat who is getting 212 votes. You only need 218 to be the Speaker. There is a danger that you could inadvertently have a vote if too many Republicans voted present, that would change those voting. If you get the majority of those voting, that Hakeem Jeffries, which I don't expect, but there's a danger. So they have to quit fooling around on the Republican side sooner or later. And as you said, Steve Scalise, who was the House whip for the Republicans, and he would be, I think, we don't know for sure, but I think he could be a compromise candidate, more so than probably a Jim Jordan or anyone else that comes to mind. And if we want to really be crazy, we could start throwing out ideas of who they could make House Speaker who is not even a member of the House, because you don't necessarily.
Yeah, we're not going to be crazy. We're just going to stick to reasonably thoughtful ideas.
At the very least, Jeff, we're watching history. I want to say before we move on to our discussion of the upcoming mayor's race to Chicago, which is very important, obviously, for indirectly the entire state. But also we should point out that today in Springfield, the state legislature returned for a lame duck, I should say, session. The new legislature will be sworn in next week, and the governor is going to be also taking the oath and inaugurated for a second term. That's about all we have on local state politics there.
Well, let's just point out, they'll be taking a look at the next week to see if they can ban assault style weapons. They'll be thinking about, they can't do anything about the fact that a judge from Kankakee County has held the Safety Act, as they call it, unconstitutional. The legislature will be doing nothing.
And then
nothing.
the Supreme Court as well, right?
Well, the
Supreme Court made it
Supreme
statewide.
Court has put a stay on the Safety Act. So that will not go into effect, has not gone into effect on January 1.
Right.
And that likely will not have any change until this has been heard before the Supreme Court on an expedited basis. That is, the constitutionality or lack thereof will be heard by the Supreme Court probably in February, probably not decided for another 3 to 4 months or so. And of course, the outcome by the Supreme Court is not in question because J.B. Pritzker paid several $1,000,000 so he could get his Supreme Court justices, those 2 new justices who came on the court. So he'll get his money's worth, and that will be held constitutional, but it will be delayed. But the important thing, Terry, is the Illinois legislature will be doing nothing that will improve the main concern of people in Chicago and Decatur and East St. Louis and around the state of Illinois. They will be doing not one damn thing to improve the crime that's running rampant. So people should know that. That's the main thing. And we don't have a judicial system in the state of Illinois, a state court system that can address that, because we now have 5 hardcore Democrats and 2 Republicans on our Illinois Supreme Court. So that's
the other
state
thing
of
we
affairs.
have, and we'll be covering this in more detail going forward after the new legislature comes in. But as you and I discussed in the past, we also have 2 new Republican leaders in the Illinois legislature, Tony McCombie in the House and John Kern in the Senate. We'll have to see how, if that makes any difference at all. But people should be aware of that. We have had a change in leadership on that. That said, we have, after 12 minutes of covering other issues, let's turn to this upcoming election this year, which will be a major issue. There's a number of people running for mayor of Chicago to replace Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot herself is running for re-election. You are more the Chicago expert as far as keeping your ear to the ground. So let me know where you want to begin. We're going to be showing some videos, I say for the audience, videos of Paul Vallas, who is one of the leading candidates, and he has been around Chicago for years, and he's also run a number of large organizations, including school districts.
So let's give people some context. The election for mayor will be held on February 28th. That is mayor of Chicago. Chicago is the engine of economic growth, or should be, for the state of Illinois. That mayoral Chicago election, February 28th. There are 11 candidates. Only 4 or 5, I would say 4, possibly 5, have any chance of winning that, and nobody's likely to get the 50% on February 28th. That would be decisive to decide who the winner is. So if not, the race will be between the top 2 vote getters in that 11 candidate field, and the top 4 in terms of likelihood to be within those top 2. Well, number 1 is Chuy Garcia. Recent poll has him at 28%, has Paul Vallas at number 2 at 19%, has Lori Lightfoot at number 3. She's the incumbent at 15%. Willie Wilson, number 4, at 13%. So that's the polling on a recent poll. There are several polls, but that's as representative of any. So Lightfoot, Garcia, Vallas, or Willie Wilson likely to be within. Those are the only 4 who really have a shot at being in that runoff. The dark horse who could possibly do it, Brandon Johnson, who's polling only at 3% in that poll, but has strong labor support from the Chicago Teachers Union, from SEIU and other teachers unions, and probably has several $1 million that he'll have at his disposal to spend. But as I say, starting from 3%. So the main thing, and we'll come back to more about each candidate, but I think, as you mentioned, Paul Vallas, who's now, I think, in the position of number 2 of those 4 who could get into the runoff, with And the main thing is he came out with announced a major media campaign, major ad campaign today. And I think we have those so we can take a look at those two ads. And he is focusing on one of the two major issues. And we're going to cover that issue extensively in the next
He's
10 minutes.
focusing on
Issue of
he's
crime.
focusing on crime in both these. And what's interesting, again, his background is in education, which is also obviously, and we'll be talking about that too. But he's initially kicking off because of the concern of the voters on crime. So let's listen to one of two ads he's released.
Crime is Chicago's biggest problem, and Paul Vallas is a lifelong Democrat who puts crime and your safety first. As city budget director, he made public safety a priority, helping grow the police department to record levels. Crime came down. Later, Vallas advised President Obama's Department of Justice on needed criminal justice reforms. And when Mayor Lightfoot and our police were at odds, Paul Vallas led negotiations that got an agreement no one thought possible. Paul Vallas. The difference? He puts crime and your safety first.
Well, it's a good ad, Terry. It highlights the major issue facing Chicago and many other, certainly inner cities in Illinois, is crime. Crime is just skyrocketing. The only thing I'd say critical of that is all he gives us, and he's given us a lot more in the interview we did with him.
Remember,
as
it's a
to the
30-second
specifics.
You know,
Yeah, it's a 30-second ad.
ads are
but all he's
not
given us,
ads are about emotions. They're not supposed to be
Well-
breakdown of policy. And as you know, the knock on Paul Vallas is that he does nothing but give you detail. He's too much of a policy wonk. So I don't think we have to worry about Vallas leaving out the details based upon
well,
his
you
reputation.
do have to work. Look, he did highlight we need more police. He would say more police on the beat, more beat control police on the ground where the rubber hits the road. So that's a really clear message that came out of that ad. That's an important one. And there are other things to it, but that's the main thing. And the main thing about Paul Vallas is, as you point out, he's got details. He's not saying he'll fix crime. He's saying that, but he's not saying just that because he lays it out elsewhere as to how he will fix crime. The other candidates I've mentioned, Garcia, Wilson, Lightfoot, even though Lightfoot has been there for 4 years, really weak on laying out for people what they would do specifically to fix crime. That's Paul Vallas's advantage.
Let's talk one more time because Vallas, again, has been a leader of major organizations and involved in Chicago politics and different administrations. Here's his other commercial, which reflects the concerns of Chicago on crime.
Crime is out of control, and combative leadership is failing us.
Paul Vallas will put crime and your safety first.
I'll work with every community in every part of our city to confront our crime problem, hold department leadership accountable, put more police on our streets and public transportation, open schools after hours to ensure young Chicagoans have safe alternatives to gangs and violence, and I'll bring people together to get it done.
Paul Vallas, crime and your safety is his top priority.
How will these, do you think, the quality of the ads, the issue that he's laying out as far as crime, is that, in your opinion, a good way for Vallas to be kicking off his campaign for mayor?
It's a good start. The second ad is he's emphasizing he's a lifelong Democrat. He has trouble there. He's not getting the share of Democrats he should be getting according to the polls. He's getting a large share of independents. He's getting a decent share of Republicans, but his weakness at the moment, relative to those other top tier candidates, he's not getting his share of Democrats. So he's got to come out and emphasize that. Usually your first ad is an introductory ad, your life story. They're skipping that. They're going right to crime and to emphasizing he's a lifelong Democrat. Not a bad strategy. And remember, Paul, for the first time in recent times, in the various races he's running, last time in 2015, he didn't have any money, didn't do well. Now he has at least $2 million. We haven't seen what he got in the last quarter. He's got money. He's got financial backers. He's a credible threat. He's more than a credible threat. He could win it all.
Well, and our friends at Wire Points have brought up, when we talk about Vallas's pitch on crime, there you go. I mean, this is 2022, what's been happening, and it's up, as you can see. only murder has gone down, but I think we think that some of these crime statistics, are different whether you're talking about pre-COVID or post-COVID.
Oh, yeah, Terry, that's a good slide. That's from our friends at WirePoints, and that's comparing 2022 year to date with 2021. But let's go to the other slide. If you have it there, I think you should. That shows, it's a very recent slide in the last few weeks, maybe last few days, that came out from WirePoints on overall Chicago crime up 41% in 2022, even though homicides are down 14%. You have that slide, Terry? Because here's the slide. Because you'll see Lightfoot, she's the incumbent. She's saying, oh, yeah, we're doing well. 4 years later, we're doing well because murders are down. Homicides are down. They're down from the peak of last year. They're down 14% from around 800 to 700. That's great. Give me a break. Overall, Chicago crime is up 41%. Okay. And the details, these numbers down below, they give you the details. People may or may not be able to read them.
They're a little hard to read those small numbers there, so why don't you go?
Well, so yeah, like up 41% means if you were to compare 2021 with 2022, all crime up about 19,000 in the last year. All crimes, 19,000 crimes from about 46,000 to 65,000 total. Okay.
And Jeff, look at just as an example, the second column, motor vehicle theft up 101%. Now,
Right.
that's not a homicide, but that scares the bejeebers out of people. And it used to be that people in Chicago thought they were safe in various neighborhoods, I should say. And now it seems to be that the idea that you can live in Chicago in certain locations and be safe is, I don't know, it seems to be evaporating.
Well, Terry, the numbers are motor vehicle theft in this last year up, as you say, 100%. Putting it in numbers, that's 10,000 motor vehicle thefts to 20,000. That's a pretty big jump. Burglaries up, robberies up. Down? Yeah, criminal sexual assaults went down 3%. Probably not even statistically significant. 2050 to 1995. Lightfoot's going to run on that. Give me a break. The polling has Lightfoot at 25% favorable, 75% unfavorable. Boy, is she underwater. Okay. And this is one of the main reasons. This crime chart is just lethal in terms of showing how poorly Lightfoot is doing in the last year. Let's see if we can go to the next one where we compare it to 2019. When we're saying Chicago homicides are down this year 14% relative to 2021, let's take the longer picture, which is when Lightfoot came in 2019. We were at almost 500 homicides in that year. Where are we now? Almost 700. That's good. We're up 200 homicides in the 4 years that Lightfoot has been mayor. Look at that trajectory. It's going up, not down.
All right, let me go ahead and bring in the other slide.
Okay. Well, you can see again, 2022 versus 2021, burglaries up, theft is up, car theft is up, murders down. All crime up 40%. 2021 is a peak year. It's good that murder's down, but that ain't cutting it. That's not going to elect Lori Lightfoot to say, yes, I've been here for 4 years and they're down in the last year, but they're way up since I came in as mayor. Really, that's why she's not running on this. Chicago 2022 crime still up 33% compared to pre-COVID, pre-Floyd, pre-George Floyd 2019. And the main thing is that's when Lightfoot comes in. That's when she becomes
mayor. Since she came in, as we see again, motor vehicle theft up 137%, murder up 39%, total crime up 33%. Not necessarily the kind of thing that you want to be writing home to the voters about and saying, hey, elect me and I'll do more of the same. And why we see Paul Vallas starting off his campaign with these two ads on fighting crime.
There are two things. We've covered crime. Crime is a terrible problem for Chicago, But also, folks, if you're watching this in East St. Louis, it's a problem there. It's a problem in Decatur. It's a problem around the state in a variety of areas. So nobody should take comfort in saying, oh, that's just Chicago. And also, Chicago is very important because, as I've said, it is the engine, or should be the engine of economic growth around the state. And if you can't solve the crime
With about
problem,
3 minutes,
you can't
let's
solve
quickly add
so let's go to education.
education.
The thing on education is we're running in CPS. We're running underutilized schools. And if we look at some of these numbers, let's go back and see if we can get the slides up. 36% of the traditional
What,
schools are
36%
now,
here of Chicago public
Yeah.
schools are half empty or worse. And yet these are still open, I take it.
of course, because they made a deal under Lightfoot, maybe even before, that they're going to keep them closed, because that's how powerful the teachers unions are, and Lightfoot hasn't done a thing about that. So we got inefficient schools. If we can go to the next slide, we can see not only are they inefficient, not only are they underutilized, these are the 10 most empty schools. Look at Douglas High School. I mean, they have a utilization of 4%, a capacity of almost 900 students, 900 seats. How many are filled?
What is meant by
34.
school being utilized?
That means that you've got 900 students at Douglas High School, 900 seats, but you only have 34 students in those seats, 4% utilization. And look at the cost.
And why are these being kept open?
$56,000 per kid, and look at how many kids are learning how to read. 0 are reading or proficient in reading.
Wow.
I'm laughing, but it's no laughing matter. As Corey,
Jeff, let me just say, because time's growing short, look at this as a reason why, despite spending $28,000 a student, few Chicago public school students can read or do math at grade level in 2022. Again, a major indictment, and we only have about a minute left here, but a major indictment of what's been going on in the city of Chicago. What is she going to run on, Lightfoot? That crime is down? It's not. That schools are getting better? They're not. So I don't know what she hangs her hat on.
The whole thing is Vallas and anybody else trying to beat her. Even Shuey said they really should go to the facts, because the facts don't lie. And the issues are in favor of anybody challenging Lori Lightfoot, because she's done a terrible job. That's what the data show.
Leave it there,
and that
Jeff.
can be fixed.
We're going to have to end. A lot in there. We'll be covering these issues going forward. And Jeff, I'll close up by saying this month, the Illinois Channel celebrates its 20th anniversary. And folks, thank you always for watching. And Jeff and I will say goodbye and see you next time.